Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
The JAMODI podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
Okay, let me go on. I'm going to take too long here.
No, you're good.
Okay. Note writing. Do you write notes to your players? Do you write notes to people?
I'd like to be better at it. Buzz Williams, I think, is one of those guys that seems to be great at everything, but he does that. And so it's an aspiration of mine.
Okay, well, the top coach at writing notes is Bill Snyder, that coached football at Kansas State.
Yeah.
He wrote notes all the time. I think a goal for a high school coach would be to write 10 notes a week. Buy note cards, get school-colored ink. You can fold them after you write something positive, tell the truth, I would write my players something positive and one thing they needed to work on, because they're more apt to remember something they need to work on. But anyway, Bill Snyder wrote notes. Say somebody played real good, a University of Kansas player against Kansas State, a good running back played well against him. He would write that guy a note and mail it to him. He'd get it on Monday after a game on Saturday. I mean, the guy is incredible. So he is noted his whole career for being a note writer. But this is who you got to write notes to. You got to write them to the custodians, the cafeteria workers. Do you know all the cafeteria workers' names? Well, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but anyway, it's good
I
to know their names.
do, but it's been the same lady for 12 years.
Okay.
I do.
Okay,
But yeah, that's important though.
but anyway, write notes to them, the assistant principal, the principal. Everybody loves a note, and everybody loves to hear their name. Don't just call them nicknames. Call them by their name. I love for somebody to call me Duane, when they run into me. I think Dale Carnegie wrote a thing. There was nothing more beautiful sound than hearing somebody's name.
That's
and
right.
it's true.
Yep.
That's true. To tell you a brief story, President George Bush, he used to play golf here in Waco, with Baylor's president and different ones. And this is about names. One time playing golf here, they played on Ladies' Day, so the ladies let them play through. But the president of Baylor knew these ladies, so he introduced them to President Bush, and so on. He said, "This is Betty Smith," and so on. A year later, they played golf on Ladies' Day again. They played through, and when President Bush went through, he waved at a lady. He said, "Hi, Betty, how are you doing?" He remembered her name. Maybe that's why these guys are incredible. But anyway, if you really, it's great if you can learn names. And I tell you, the best way to remember a name is when you meet somebody, just think of a movie star that has that name and put it with them. Like Matt, who's a movie star, Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Okay.
Yeah. And it
Just
sounds
every
like
time, and
Sayman.
just run that through your mind, and
Yeah.
you'll always have these names. And you're getting ready to go to a
Yeah.
new place, so you've got to learn a lot of names. Okay, so on. But anyway, cafeteria workers, you need to write these notes, and then you don't have to mail them. You can just put them in their box or whatever. But anyway, it's good
Yeah.
to write notes. There's power in notes, not text. I know one coach, he texts all his former players Merry Christmas. And he's 10, 15 years of coaching. He keeps their cell number. But anyway, it's good to communicate.
Yeah.
So on. Okay, let's see here. Notes. You think about doing this. Write your wife a love note and put it in the refrigerator and let her find it. Kind of surprise her. Women don't think like men. There's an old saying, men are from Mars and women are from Venus. We don't really think alike. And so on.
Good advice.
Now,
I'm
jump around a
going to
little bit
borrow
here.
that one for sure.
You can't do this. Won't have this often. But the team, you need a leader on your team. Now, usually it's a born thing. You can't make them a leader. Like you were a leader, but most people aren't leaders. I coached 29 years, head coach, well, 27 years I was a head coach. I had two natural leaders in 29 years. You know, if you have them, they are so powerful, they can literally tell the other players what to do and they'll listen to them. And a lot of times they weren't the best players on the team. But anyway, if you could find some way of having leadership, you know, it's so important. Have a team
Can I
leader.
jump in on that one?
Yeah, anytime.
So, so one quick story about that. I agree with you. I used to think that two things when I started coaching. I used to think that everybody wanted to be a college basketball player and that everybody was a leader. And I was at McKinney High School as a varsity assistant, and we had a team that we were really excited about coming up. We're going to play faster. We're going to spread the floor more. But I really thought that there was one player that we had that, man, he had it all. He was a good player. People did respect him. And I thought if he would use his voice, he could really lead well. And we had to work out. And I just thought he missed some opportunities to establish himself as that. And I was young. I went and got him out of class, which I would tell you as any coaches, don't get your players out of class for basketball reasons or messages. Don't do that. But I got him out of class. I said, I really think you missed this opportunity today to be a leader. And he started welling up with tears. And now I'm freaking out because it looks like I've made this young man cry in the hallway.
Uh-huh.
Man, I said, "Man, what's wrong? Like, what's happening?" He's like, "Coach, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that guy." And that was like a moment of, okay, you can't
Golly.
force it. You can't force it. You want to try to create an environment where they can rise up and you can enable and you can encourage that leadership to happen. But if they don't want to do it, it's going to be really hard. Let me ask you this, Coach. What are some of those attributes that you see in some of those players that became great leaders for you?
Well, they weren't afraid of the other guys trying to fight them or anything. And, you know, where I coached
Confrontation.
at La
Yeah.
Vega,
Yeah.
and most of my players played football, you know, and so the leaders, they've been leaders in football, so they came to basketball and they weren't afraid to speak up. And generally they weren't really great players. They were good athletes, but it was just born into them. I don't think you can teach it, but they generally just knew what to say. You know Larry Brown. He used to coach at Bryan. He coached at a million places. He's really the godfather to me of Texas high school basketball. He won the
Heard
state
that name a
championship.
ton. Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, it'd be nice. He's retired, lives in Florida now. It'd be nice if you had him on your podcast. He last time he coached was at Texas Tech under Beard, but
Yeah.
so he's worked his way. He coached at like 25 different schools in Texas. I mean, he moved all the time. But he was great. But he won state in 81 and 82, which was 4A then, which is now 6A. Uh, and surprisingly, the leader on both his teams each year, I mean, those 2 years, was the manager. The
Wow.
manager, he would get them at the huddle. They'd huddle up at the game. He'd say, "You all listen to coach. What are you thinking?" He would chew them out, and they liked it. So you never know who's going to speak up. We had a freshman at La Vega. He lined up the whole varsity football team and would just chew them out and make them play. And they loved it. But he was a good athlete. But anyway, so I don't know if you can make a leader. I know Grant Taft, when he coached at Baylor, he had a leadership school for his
Wow.
players, for them to learn how to lead and so on. But I don't know I don't know how it happens. It's just born into people
Yeah.
and so on. But anyway, so you got to have leaders. Now, let me do this, Matt. Tell me when I'm talking too long.
You're not.
Okay.
No,
I wanted to
this is
write down my 5 top email. I want you to think about writing down my 5 best emails in 25 years. Okay. You ready?
yes, sir.
Now, this first one, almost nobody does in Texas or America. And I learned it from Matt Wester. And Matt Wester learned it from Jeff Clarkson. I think Jeff said, what, Prestonwood?
Yes,
And Matt did it at Plano. And it's called a bolo screen. And I don't know how they got the name, but it's called a bolo screen. Nobody does this. but this is my number one email over 25 years. Nobody, like I say, nobody does it. I say it's my number one email, but I'm not getting anybody voting on these things or anything. But anyway, what happens is almost everybody in Texas, athletic teams press man to man, don't they? Usually. At some time in a game, you're going to get pressed man to man. If you're behind head late in the game, they're going to press you, whatever. But anyway, and so what happens is you set a bolo screen whenever they score and they press you man to man. You'll normally throw the ball into your point guard, right? Could throw it into two, but you're going to throw it into a guard. You have your big that's going to be guarded by their biggest guy. Set a ball screen for the dribbler between the free throw line and the half court line. Go screen him, set a legal screen, and tell that guard to drive off of him either right or left. Are they going to switch? No, they're not going to switch because that big can't guard him. I've never seen it double teamed. I have never seen it not work. And you know, Matt did it in the state tournament. Oh, I've seen teams get worn out with a man-to-man press, and all they had to do was ball screen.
Think about it, or you believe that your ball handler should be able to handle it on their own, but why not make it easy for him? But you could also create a really good advantage out of that, because if they are pressing, most likely they're going to be more spread out than having really good
Right.
help. And you can create, like for us, we have more of a full court style offense against
Uh-huh.
pressure. That would make us play even more advantage games out of it. So I love that.
Generally, you'll get a lot of layups out of it, and you'll break them down. They'll make a play. But anyway, that is my. I love that email bolo screen. Always number two. Always hand the ball to the official with two hands. Look him in the eye. You could even wink at him. You know, just kill him with kindness. You know, kids today are so rude to people in authority. You know, that teaches them some discipline. I had one coach this last year that I told him to have his players do that. He did it. They did it all year. In practice, they would even have to hand the ball with two hands to the coach. They couldn't throw it. If they throw it to the coach, they had to do some type of penalty. If they threw it to the official, they got them. They made them run the next day. But I had one coach that did it, that the school board president from an opposing school came over to him after watching the game and seeing him hand the ball, said, if you ever need a job, I won't say the name of the school, said, we will hire you. Because that is amazing, them handing the ball. So make sure, I learned that from Rick Shirley, that, you know, the
Oh,
head of
awesome.
well, assistant, the TABC, Hawk's the head of it
Yeah.
now. Let's see here. Hand the ball to the official. Wearing the crown. You know what that is, where on out of bounds plays, when the other team's inbounding it and you're playing man to man, wearing the crown comes from Norm Stewart, the University of Missouri. He always stood his man defending the inbounder under the rim, looking at the ball. He's like a hockey goalie, you know. And then you play, you know, man to man. That guy won't get any shots if you hustle to cover him if they run a play, special play for him. By the way, when you run wearing the crown or any out of bounds play on man to man defense, don't let them catch the ball in the near corner. You follow me? Make them throw it
Yeah.
someplace else, because
Yeah.
that's where you throw most of them. Some of them lob it back now to the elbow. Anyway, that is a good thing to do, wearing the ground. And the other thing is you can take your big on out of bounds plays and put him over the ball where they can't see, and play everybody else play man to man. You can switch. That's how Duke defended this year, all year, with the big guy, 7'2" guy over the ball. And the other thing you can do on out of bounds defense is you can play a triangle and two. In fact, two great Texas coaches played a triangle and two their whole career on out of bounds plays, and nobody do it. See, these guys will tell me the truth because I'm retired.
Did they stay in it the whole time, the whole possession?
No, once they got it
Okay.
in, they played man to man.
Okay.
Okay, Larry Brown, that was at Bryan. He played a triangle and two, even when he coached at Ranger Junior College. He would even keep stats on how many times he gave up a score on an out of bounds play. His last year at Ranger Junior College, they scored 7 times that year on out of bounds plays. Okay, and let's see who else did. J.D. Mayo, he played a triangle and two his whole career at Skyline. Those are two great coaches.
Can you
But anyway,
explain how
so
that
think
worked?
about doing that. Okay, you're going to find their two best outside shooters. Most teams only have two shooters. Now, on out of bounds plays, their best shooter, one of the shooters could be the person inbounding the ball. So you'd have to play him man to man, then find their other best shooter. Then if the two best shooters are on the floor, you play them man to man, and the other guy's in the triangle, you're going to put it all around their big guy, you know, and so he won't get it. And then once it gets in, just go man to man. It's a
Like
great way. It really does work. It's very successful. Triangle and two, and let's see, where am I at here?
wearing the crown,
Okay,
triangle and two.
on missed free throws. One of my friends, Joe Holliday, which was Roy Williams' assistant coach for 15 years at Kansas and then at North Carolina, not once in the 15 years there, whenever Kansas or Carolina shot a free throw, did their bigs try to catch it. They tipped them all to half court. They practiced it, and they tipped them all to half court. They didn't want, and it's amazing. It's easy to do. And also, a lot of teams now, Santa Clara is great at this. Whenever they miss an outside shot, if you can only get one hand on the offensive board, you can't tip it in, they tip all those to half court now. Santa Clara was the best team in the nation this year at doing that. But anyway, file that away. Tipping it back on missed free throws and missed shots. Okay. Here's a good thought by Joe Paterno. You can't be a nice guy and do this job. I think Joe Paterno was tremendous. And he also said this. I follow a lot of coaches, not just basketball coaches. He said this, and think about it because it's very deep. You ready? Your players tend to become what they believe you think they are. Your players tend to become what they believe you think they are, meaning they're watching your body language. They're watching everything about you, and they can tell whether you think they're good or bad, or not as good. I shouldn't say bad. But anyway, so file that away because that's very true. It helps.
I
Okay,
love that, coach. I think that's super powerful because you can say all the right things, but your tone, your body language, the way that your face looks, man, it can send just such a different message. And I think being really conscious of that in games, in practice, and skill work, really important.
there's so much psychology that goes into this. Bear Bryant, even though he was a rough guy, you know, I actually wanted him to be president of the United States. But anyway, uh, he did this in football. After a game on Saturday, on Monday, he would replace two offensive starters and maybe a defensive starter or two. And on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, they would be on the second string. Thursday, they were back on the starting lineup, you know. But anyway, I think
Yeah.
sometimes in basketball, it doesn't hurt. Why does a kid have to start? The last
Yeah.
game I coached, not the last game I coached, the best player and the leading scorer in La Vega history, the last game he played for me was a senior. I benched him, because he was hogging the ball, I thought, the game before. And so I didn't start him. My wife says, honey, you really punished him. You held him out 1 minute and 27 seconds. But anyway, so you got to use something on him.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.